the next top lane champion in jungle is that top laners can shit talk on.
All right, let's jump into game number 2 here between SBTC Esports and Cerberus. Cerberus is up 1-0, fighting for their lives. Again, in my opinion, I still think that Cerberus, if we were asking around for who had the kind of worst end of the back half of the split, Cerberus, I think, won the majority of their games in the front half of the split, and they do not want to fall into a position that they could be taken up by GAM. So this is the only way to do it. They got to win here, and then they got to win the tiebreaker. Already put themselves in a good position by winning game number 1, but SBTC gets a chance to fight back just a little bit as we kick off our first game. What do you think of the Yordle matchup top lane? You got Kennen going up against the Rumble. We haven't seen these two. I haven't seen these two paired against one another very specifically recently. It's been a couple of seasons since these two have been in the meta at roughly the same time to be able to get this type of view.
I'm actually not really sure either. I haven't seen that matchup specifically. I'm guessing that Rumble can force out the Kennen early, but once Kennen gets some levels in, he can really poke him out with Q. I think that matchup changes massively if the Kennen should go attack speed, which he doesn't go because, I mean, he has Airy. So I'm expecting that he should go the normal item build.
Yeah, it's weird because we've seen 3 very distinctive builds here inside of the VCS for the Rumble, which is the Airy with usually it's Rocket Belt because you want to be able to team fight really effectively, and the Airy also helps out poking in the lane phase. You got Conqueror, which is a bit more of the attack speed build. You also go Rift Maker, and usually it's a tank buster is how I see it used more often than not. And then of course there is the famous Kiaya Heartsteel, which got used before LCK did it, which was really awesome. Which honestly I don't think would have gone too badly in a game like this, where you could get stacks up against the Rumble at the beginning of the game. But of those builds, obviously Emperor has decided, hey, the laning phase probably not going to be all that important. The Kennen ultimate and being able to team fight with it effectively is going to be a lot more important. So we're going to stick with that strategy.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm gonna be interested to see if we see any early aggression from either of these teams, because Vi and Wukong are usually 2 champions that really like to just play it slow, play controlled, and we might see a lot of pressure though around that level 6 power spike, because especially Dia1 and Yado can also help out. Ari and Annie, probably 2 of the best playmaking level 6 champions to just lock somebody down and make sure they die.
Yes, I believe our producer's also asleep at the wheel. Okay, there he is. I was worried that Spoons had gone to sleep or something like that because we're all exhausted right now, and we were going to end up sitting watching some of the VCS casters for some time, as it looks like we went into a bit of a pause. It's also been a while since I've seen like pure unadulterated carries up in the top lane that warrant some jungle pressure, and both junglers have actually decided to path from bot to top. I remember the beginning of the season, I'm pretty sure everybody was like, oh yeah, it's just a path to bot angle over and over again. We're playing for bot lane. This is the first time I think I've seen both junglers say, hey, let's go top. We got the Rumble and the Kennen to play for.
Yeah, I mean, it's a crazy place and up in top lane, definitely. But I mean, I've seen a lot of those top lane matchups recently, just because if we watch LPL, you have like a half a dozen insane carry top laners that usually take over the game there. So I've seen quite a bit of Kennen, I've seen quite a bit of Rumble, just not against each other currently too often.
And obviously, we haven't stepped into the game too heavily, but if we rewind and you think about the compositions here for a minute, I mean, where are you giving breakpoints for these 2 teams? Like, who are you expecting pressure from Vi and from Wukong in order to grab up in this particular late game?
Especially around that level 6 spike on basically every position is where I'm expecting stuff to happen, because you have great level 6. You basically have insane ultimates on the entire top side for everybody. You have Rumble Kennen on top lane, you have Wukong Vi in the jungle, and you have any Ahri on mid lane. All those champions basically rely on their ultimate winning games and just taking over. So I'm expecting that we see a lot of party around that level 6 power spike.
Yeah, it'll be fun to see when things kind of break loose for themselves, whether or not if SBTCE or Cerberus kind of make a more aggressive move before that. Because once we hit level 6, you got a lot of really fun ultimates to use on both sides for big team fighting and for everything else. So if we get a quiet early game, some of the early, maybe second dragon, maybe Rift Herald, things like that will start to be a lot more competitive. Because both teams are going to want to jump off and use these big ticket ultimates to try to find some kind of effect. I'm not sure if our producer has any sort of update on this. I might be willing to throw this to a break if he's ready for it, just so that we don't have to sit here and continue rambling about everything else. As Yeah, I mean, our first game, this is actually crazy. I don't remember. I haven't been a part of a break for some time. I don't want to jinx us super crazy here today, but usually this has actually been a better split. Our VCS has been so much better about doing broadcasts. So this must be a well warranted break for one of the two teams to need this much time.
Yes. I mean, it's also that they're back on stage, right? So before, and specifically the past 2 years, they were playing from their gaming houses. So I think there was a lot of more stress involved because technical issues couldn't be resolved immediately. Somebody had to be at the gaming house, maybe resolve it there, and a lot more trouble all around in most leagues. But now being back on stage, I think they can definitely do it better. But I think with that, we're giving into a small pause. And once the technical issues have been resolved, we're back for you with game number 2.
Oh, okay, no break. Yeah, okay, we were expecting a lot longer. Again, we've kind of been ties over the last few seasons into believing that breaks are going to take like an hour and a half. We've had that happen before, so a solution getting found. Again, props to VCS, making sure that we don't have to wait 100 years as we get a bit of scrap between DNK and Drakthar around this top scuttle. Here we go.
Yeah, and here comes to play what you said last game already. Once that Wukong hits the level 3, the Vi can't really fight him in the 1v1, so DNK winning out on that trade, not being invaded level 2, and that means he gets the first grab, and he should probably also get the second grab because his bot lane holds the priority there as well.
Yeah, should be easy enough for DNK to kind of clean up quite a bit. In fact, actually, it was Paulette who ended up, I think, my apologies. He was covering up the scuttle, and I thought it was taken. I thought Paulette just, went up and Chad grabbed it as Nautilus. Is like, I need this gold anyway, not letting it go to anybody else. But instead, it's going to be forced to DNK, who's going to double scuttle. Notably, Vi is actually up, taking Gromp, I believe, from the side of DNK. I was wondering if maybe a dive could come through, but I think he's a little bit too low health to actually make that happen with Pun, unless he flash queued over top of the wall to find the cannon.
Yeah, he's also spotted and now, so Emperor should know that there's something coming. The wave is really bad for him though, so they could be still looking for this. Emperor though playing it really slowly. And Drakthtar's getting chunked out, so Pun is flashing.
That was okay. It's actually really good understanding of damage right there from everybody. Pun thought he had the damage. Emperor just barely doesn't die. Had to pop both charges of the pod just to make sure that the healing would come through. His wave is going to shove back towards him, which either buys Pun a lot of space to poke under the tower or going to buy him a back is in the bot lane. And again, another ward. All right, Nautilus Hook does snag up Artemis. It's not going to lead to anything else as there's no follow-up from DNK, but a little bit of ganks traded back and forth. Nothing super heavy hits though.
Yeah, I mean, so far we see a lot of fighting, not really a lot of killing. And I mean, Pun tried it with Ignite, of course, that you're playing on that Rumble. I'm going to be excited to see if Pun is Chanji and just ends up being level 5 bot for no reason. Because that's how I feel about Rumble, right? What you kind of not have to do, but I feel like where Rumble really excels is when you randomly just experience bot for no reason. It's what I'm used to, so I'm excited to see if Pun can also do that.
Yeah, when you're a champion with as much damage loaded into the kit as what Rumble has, it's always nice to be able to find other members that can provide some kind of CC and just join them in some capacity. So if you could ever link up with Drakthar or even Huber, that would be a fantastic boon to be able to utilize some of this Rumble damage. Especially when you hit the level 6 mark, you can keep them locked down on that equalizer and things like that. But even the Flame Spitter, the harpoons as well, the ridiculous penetration you get from hitting a target with both of those makes you just such a devious threat at the beginning of the game. It would be nice to see, but for now, we'll stay in lanes. Again, our expectation that level 6 will be hit before anything kind of crazy goes on is still standing true. As Slater begins to bully up against Huber and Artemis at the beginning of this one, ganked into the top lane is going to be Pun going down. Equalizer gets dropped directly on top of these two members. As DNK is actually taking a ridiculous amount of damage. Your first blood goes over to Pun. That's Emperor having to flash afterwards with the E to be able to grab something. Now Slicing Maelstrom's going to be able to dump into the wave, grab anything as long as Emperor doesn't die, but Drakthar can't really chase any further. Because of that, Emperor should be able to help push this wave back a little further. Just a 1-for-1, but again, Pun, all the damage in the world.
Yeah, really interesting to see that both top laners actually turned it when the enemy jungle arrived, and now it ends up being 1-for-1. Both top laners got the kill, and here we can see, look back, DNK basically has to use everything to get close to Pun, and now Pun can get just ulti overload and then get his Q out, and DNK ends up dying on the back end. And Emperor also has to flash because he can't get too close, and in the end, Drakthar can't finish him off.
Yeah, I like the little kind of throw in there that Pun during the equalizer while it was dropping actually tagged the second Electro Harpoon, which means that the first tick didn't get all the penetration, but every other tick of equalizer did, and the slow lasted through the first couple seconds, which probably led to a lot more equalizer damage than DNK was expecting. So again, expertise of the champion, or at least a little bit more expertise than we're normally accustomed to on some of these damage carries by Pun on this Rumble. Already looking up as having the first blood, having a bit of CS advantage. Now DNK is going to continue to punish him as he's a little bit angry about what happened before. Pun is just running at Enper, though, as he's overheated. Now he can turn on to DNK. The first Electro, there's the second Electro Harpoon. That's going to be the Cyclone Pop to try to put some additional damage down. Pun is now overheated. He's not going to have support. It's Dio1 who comes in out of nowhere, and that should be a dead Pun right there. But another 1-for-1 trade by Pun in the top lane.
This man, personally, I think learned the champion from Shanji, because that's the only player that I can remember doing that in top lane consistently, just being ganked, not caring, killing everybody. And I think that's the Giga Chat Rumble mindset, while DNK, I think, died.
Yeah, I mean, that's just a bring down. That's Drakthar and Yato immediately after that gank into the top lane, or finding a kind of rubber band kill where there's DNK's on the map just a little bit too long. Rift Herald's also going to get taken off the back of it too, which is a really nice play. Again, they've got their support. Rumble's going to be back on the map, going to have equalizer. You can't really challenge here. Dio1 could step up to the plate, but again, Yato's around. And there's two members that were in mid as Artemis gets dove underneath the bottom tower. Now Slater, the question is, can you actually get something? He's going to be able to ultimate and flash out so that he doesn't take tower aggro. Really well juggled by he and Paulette right there as the bot dive works.
Yeah, and at the same time, now we see Pan in the bot lane. I wanted to see him in the bot, and he ends up getting the first kill for sure. Paulette, the question is, does Yuba get him, or does Paulette get to walk out? There's a Rumble coming, there's a TP coming. I think Paulette is dead.
Yes, I believe so as well. Let's just see who gets it. That's going to be the Electro Harpoon, and Yato's going to grab it up with the Charm. So again, originally it was Huber and Pun. My apologies, that were both in mid lane, and I was thinking they were going to go up and they were going to try to fund for the Rift Herald, but instead they give up the Rift Herald and they make the bot dive happen, or the bot play happen in response to the bot dive. Cerberus does pick up 2 kills in response to that Rift Herald going down, as Emperor is going to walk face first into Pun. Slicing Maelstrom is going to get popped. Sorry, right in the middle of that fight too. Doesn't look like there's gonna be enough. I spoke way too soon. I was like, okay, he's got like 700 health left. He's perfectly fine. I forgot completely that the overloaded Q alongside the double Electro Harpoons is just too much to deal with.
Yeah, but the thing is, he has Mar boot, so that's completely fair. That's too big of a damage item. I mean, in the end, the Mar boots is really helping him out, making sure that he can't be one-shot by Emperor on the other side. And I mean, Pan is putting on a masterclass on this Rumble, and he's just, I'm excited to see if that keeps on giving, because that might just be the 2-0 for Cerberus if he keeps on playing this way.
Ooh, okay. Bit of a hook around the corner does find Huber. Brom's going to be able to jump backwards, but there's support from DNK and Slater here to try to put some damage into Artemis. Not able to get it. Yeah, it's really shocking to me. Whenever I see Rumble mains, I feel like even when their champion is strong, they just don't play it that often, which is crazy to me because, again, when this champion's played to perfection, it does so much work. As Drakthar and Yato hovering around in mid lane, there's support from Huber as well. Artemis is just cleaning up the bot wave. It looked like they were trying to contest the dragon to some extent, but it's going to be a minute until they can really get into the river. There's too much push in mid and too much control by the side of SBTC's players to actually give up this river. So waiting is something is likely to spark. That's going to be Tibbers dropped on top of Yata. Not enough damage. There's TNK popping the Cyclone directly onto Drakthar, as this is a really strange fight coming out here. Nobody going down quite yet. Huber's dropped. Drakthar's dropped. Yato's dropped. Artemis is fine, but Ultimate's burnt here from the side of SBTC, as Dragon might be on the table for them, but...
I mean, they can maybe look for that Drake, but they're not looking to do so. And I think Pan is looking for a top lane. He's looking for Pikachu. Pikachu's dead, I think.
Maybe.
I mean, he does have Flash.
Yeah, he's got Flash. Gonna have to find a sneaky way to get out of this. Equalizer's not perfect, as the Slicing Maelstrom once again is gonna come out. Yeah, he's just got too much damage. What are you supposed to do? Pun does have to wait through the overcool. Emperor's gonna get the stun down. Oh, just barely outside this flame splitter range. And because of that, that means that Pun is not gonna find the damage, not gonna find lethal. Does burn the ultimate and the Flash, as Dragon on the other side of the map does go down here for SBTC Esports.
Yeah, well played there from Emperor, being able to get out of that, not giving up another solo kill. Already gave up 2. Doesn't want to have a 3rd, and now the hook from Paulette.
And Drakthar probably dies, unless he's able to sneak out with that smite. There we go. Okay, yeah. And DNK decides to W flash forward just to make sure that the kill goes down on Drakthar. As traded back a little bit again without the kill on top side, actually ends up being about 1,000 gold advantage in the first dragon of the game, going into the side of SBTCE. As Artemis and Huber fancy themselves a bit of an invade. I was thinking they were going to go invading to try to find DNK, but don't end up full committing to that idea.
No, and if we look at both team comps who does outscaling, I think it is a pretty close affair. I think Zeri on the one hand, of course, is a great skating champion, but Wukong can I feel like have a bit of an easier AoE comp for the side of SBTC. So I think both teams can definitely win late game team fights. I think it's so much easier to play for SBTC this time, where they have those big AoE ultimates.
Oh my goodness. Pun is refusing to allow Enper to play this game in the slightest, as he's doing his best Enper performance. That's got to be at least the second solo kill of the game, if not there are more, because I think he had one earlier when there were 2 people inside of the fight. So I think Pun's on 3 solo kills right now inside of this game on the Rumble. He is just smashing. This is the X factor that Cerberus has been missing for such a long time. I remember when they won their Mickey Mouse split, one of the biggest things that they had going for them was that Pun was kind of just gapping other top laners on like Mundo and on Tom Kench and these other weird tanks. And while he's never quite recaptured that magic, I'm starting to get senses of it on this Rumble here. Oh, what happened to Annie? Looks like a gank happened mid lane, and
yeah. We didn't see, but there's another kill for Ari, so I'm guessing that Ari somehow managed to get that, and
let's see.
Now we can see it. There's no jungler here, or nope. They start tough flying in. Yado hits the charm. Perfect charm. That was wonderful.
Yeah, great execution by Yado. Oh, actually into the backline. There's DNK making a play happen for the bottom lane. While the 2 solo lanes have actually gone not great, DNK turning his focus down towards the one winning place that SBTC has had basically all game is the Xayah and this Nautilus combination have done such good work. That's first tower here for Slater, as this is the person we were looking to kind of step up for the side of SBTC Esports. Not everything's working perfectly. Again, not only the kill on Yado, but a couple of kills on Pun. But bottom lane has certainly been in a losing situation basically all game long, as Slater's getting run at by Pun. And this time the minions are going to block for him, though. Yes,
and all around, Slater doesn't have an easy game, because there's a huge, insanely fed Rumble on the other side, and now we can see again what happened in bot lane. They just got baited wonderfully by Slater, and both DNK were there. DNK and Palette were there to cover him. Double kill for the Xayah, but again, the Xayah doesn't have an easy game. There's a lot of dive, there's a lot of potential to just shut him down.
Yeah, it's a pretty decent gold lead at the beginning of this one, and a lot of that's going to be into Slater. So shutting out Slater is going to become a #1 goal here for Cerberus, between not only like Drakthar and Yado for diving, but also again Pun, and the ultimate placement, being able to drive Slater out of fights is going to be something to pay attention to drastically. As they're starting to break into teamfight territory. We're at 14 kills already, which is kind of crazy, but I'm guessing teamfighting is going to ramp up here, because again, at some point these big ticket ultimates are going to want to be used on more than like one person at a time, right, Tim?
Yeah, usually you want to use them on multiple people. That's kind of how AoE big ultimates work. As Enper picks up his first item, probably a bit behind Pun there. But I expect that SBTC isn't really gonna look for any of those big fights before the second item, the Navori Quick Blades, comes in for Slade in the bot.
Yes, a very, very quick one for Slater after the Gale Force is completed. So accelerated very, very heavily on the Xayah. It does make this a lot easier to kind of manage. As Drakthar is going to drop Rift Herald in the top lane, give some gold over to Yado, and continue getting some threat. Bot lane is actually being pressured right now, but the side of SPTC, they're choked up to this side, the inner tower on the bottom side, which could lead to quite a bit, but there's no defense here on the top side. Enper's the only one within striking distance to be able to come over here and respond to it. Notably, Paulette has joined him over here as well.
As we see a 3-man push in the top lane, and that probably means that Drake is going over to SPTC, but it's only Cloud Drake, so I think for Cerberus just trading gold for that is very strong. But on the other hand, SPTC taking mid turret is really important, because that means they can open up the map, and they need vision, they need flank board for the cannon, they need good vision to get a flash any Tibbers in, and I think that's so important to break that tier 1 turret, to get that vision into the enemy jungle and to be able to actually dominate the map.
Yeah, taking away more information and taking away more space to be able to generate these big ticket team fights for the side of SBTCE is going to be necessary, especially because after the early game that was kind of exposed by Enper, getting good flank angles for the cannon is going to be all the more necessary just to make sure that the ultimate's going to have some sort of impact. Can't go rushing in through the front by any standard at all, given just how far behind that he is. And SBTCE, they're only at 1,000 gold. They did give up that inner tower, which equalized things a little bit more. But 2 dragons buys them space to be able to get into a little bit later item territory. They're going to lose mid tower, which should equalize the gold even more. But at minimum, they're within kind of close striking distance. Again, the big things are that Yato, Pun, both feeling great inside of this game, versus Slater, who has to be a kind of shining star here for SBTCE to carry them through some of the team fights. I suppose the Annie's not completely dead in the water quite yet either, because she's got some decent damage. It's just you have to be very, very cautious with the way you approach with this team from Cerberus.
One thing that is really interesting is that we see Annie actually going for the full burst build here, which I really do not like from DR1, because you see on the other side you already have Banshees, you have two MR boots, so there's a lot of MR just coming in because you have the cannon as well, because you have so much CC. So I'm just asking myself, why not Rod of Ages? Why not be that like utility Annie together with your cannon? You're gonna have enough AP damage anyways, even though he's behind. It doesn't really matter, and you're actually useful champion. And in this case, you're just asking for more MR on enemy team.
I think the only thing I can come up with is that Pun is going to be, if Pun's ultimate isn't inside a team fight, you have to be a lot closer, which means Annie should have access to being able to dump damage into Pun. And maybe the thought is, if he doesn't build a bunch more defense, doesn't build a bunch more MR, maybe you can kind of one-tap Pun and keep him out of a fight to ensure everything else. Again, I think that's hopeful more than anything else. And I agree with you. I think Rod, even Leandries probably wouldn't have been a terrible build path in a game like this. But they're trying something. They're trying to make sure that some of these frontliners are going to feel a lot more afraid for their life if they come jumping forward willy-nilly, as DO1 with this Ludens will have a bunch of damage into the single target, basically no matter what the circumstance. Top tower traded for bot tower, feeling a lot more like a Season 5 game where we're just trading structures back and forth to make sure that both teams have a bunch of gold to work with. Rumble was also super popular during that season, so we are getting a real flashback to Season 5.
Yeah, both teams kind of watching each other. We saw some early aggression, of course, from both teams coming out. SBTC now actually having the gold lead back, and specifically Slater's feeling so good, but it's all gonna be about those Pun ultimates, because playing an immobile AD carry as Xayah, even if you have the Gale Force, even if you have the ultimate, into Rumble ultimate is gonna be really hard to do, especially if Vi baits the Xayah ultimate and then the Rumble ultimate comes down afterwards and it's completely unplayable.
What is astonishing to me is that both these top laners have done a piss poor job at farming in this game. Look at the farm on the. I was like, why in the world are we only just now passing 2 items as Pun? He's got like 5 kills in this game. It's because he's got 134 CS. Where's the CS gone, Tim?
I mean, he's playing that roaming Rumble style. It's just he forgot to farm as well. Yeah, I mean. That usually tells you that he isn't too proficient on this Rumble, or like the style of Rumble that he's playing, right? Because like he hasn't figured out the perfect timers yet where he can roam without losing massively. And so usually you wanna, like, you're on those champions, you're gonna lose CS, like you're gonna fall behind comparatively. So I wouldn't have been surprised if it was at 170, 180 CS. I think that would have been more reasonable. Just having those 30 CS more could make all the difference. I mean, 30 CS is what, like 1.5 kills roundabout? So
something like that, yeah.
A lot of gold. Emperor is in trouble.
Yes, Slicing Maelstrom's available. He's not even going to get it off before he ends up going down to Yato and Drakthars. This is that dive fet that you were alluding to earlier. The potential, this is something that Slater has to be terrified of. Now, in fairness, Emperor doesn't have those defensive tools up and going yet, like the Gale Force, like the Flash. I guess the Flash is there. But that is a very clear indication of what they're capable of doing in a very quick manner to somebody who does not end up getting any of the defensive tools off.
Yeah, now we see third Drake coming around. Cerberus is still down both Yados and Draktar's ultimate right now. They should have them up for the Drake itself, but that means there's like a low phase right now that SBTC can use to set up some vision, to set up control, and to make sure that Cerberus has to phase check into darkness, and that is so hard to do. Palette, DR1, DNK, and the cannon have great angles into that darkness to just find big engages, find AoE, and then run them down.
Okay. third dragon now. Infernal Soul also up on the board is a terrifying dragon to give away to either team. You think about what a Rumble can do with an Infernal Soul. Think about what these two ADCs are going to be able to do with Infernal Soul. There's so much damage in this game that this is just a disgusting Drake to have as our kind of our trade back and forth. Gold basically dead even, both positioned in the midst of the river. This is the fight we've been looking for, Tim. Let's see what we've got between these two teams, as the dragon is going to be dropped to half health. Emperor's looking on a very deep flank angle up around the top side of Cerberus. Available is basically everything for both squads. We're going to get a chance. That's going to be a jump in, hook through the middle, trying to find something. That's an insane equalizer to drive out the ultimate from Slater, as that's a 1 kill onto DO1, but there's so many members in the backline. Emperor did so much with his slicing Maelstrom. Dragon is going to get taken up by Cerberus, as the fight afterwards is just all Cerberus as well. It looked like there was some excitement there. It looked like there was enough damage done by Emperor, but they could just never get Slater in position.
I mean, the problem is that Emperor is playing into so much MR that he's legit not doing any damage whatsoever. I mean, he went in there, I think he had a 4-man ultimate, 4-man stun to make sure the enemy team couldn't move, but it didn't matter because he doesn't have any damage. He's not killing anybody, and that just means that in the end, he's basically just useless. He's a CC bot, and if you have to use a cannon as a CC bot, it's pretty rough.
Yeah, even worse also, I think, if we get the replay, you're going to see DL1 basically got 100 to 0'd with no chance of stepping up to do any damage against the side of Cerberus. Let's see if we can track that. Yep, there's the Braum, there's the ultimate, there's the equalizer, there's the Vi ultimate. Unfortunately, DL1 didn't get to play the game. And again, Slater got shoved out. The equalizer kept him so far away from all the action that there's just no additional damage. Played perfectly by the side of Cerberus. Again, outside of the Emperor ultimate doing quite a bit of disruption. Honestly, really well played from them, grabbing up the dragon as well.
Yeah, and that's the issue with this DR1 item build. If he builds more tanky, then he might be able to survive that initial engage, get his Tibbers out, be utility for his team, but in the end, he is nothing, and then Slater can't play because of it. Because if you build space as any, then suddenly Slater gets a few alternatives off. Suddenly Slater gets to get his feathers back, and suddenly you have a lot of damage to take down single targets, but in this case, the Annie is just dead, Slater doesn't get space, and Emperor is basically useless.
Yeah, it's a tough place to be if you're SBTC Esports. Again, slowly the items trickling in will make this team fight quite a bit more kind of potent, but it's a question of whether Cerberus are just going to beat them there, because they're already potent with a lot of the team fighting tools. Not to mention the Infernal Dragon going over on its own is just going to be valuable for the additional damage, and you've got potentially 3 more of those to go over to Cerberus to really clean up this game. You have to make sure that they are shut out for the rest. If you're SBTCE, the more damage that this squad's going to have, the harder this is going to get. Equalizer cuts off DNK and Emperor a little bit, but it's just Yada who should be able to pick up the tower for free with this Baron buff in mid lane. The shove's going to continue as well to try to pull additional structures off the board, get the Cerberus lead even higher. Slater just steps up to the plate right against Trakthar and says, I'm going to auto you nearly to death. As Hugh gets caught out by the Nautilus hook. That's going to be the Annie. That's one just dead. Pun also in a really horrid position to actually get out of a bad situation. Emperor comes TPing in to try to make this into a fight. DNK is going to get a 700 gold shutdown. Now Drakthar goes in. The Slicing Maelstrom going to be close enough to maybe get a stun down. You have to be really careful. Artemis is a huge ultimate here to potentially find some additional damage. Drakthar doesn't quite go down as the others continue to rain in from Artemis, who flashes in, but he's not quite going to be able to find anything as SPTCE just walk away with a couple of kills. That was almost disgusting. Artemis almost cleans 5, but fortunately no one goes down.
Yeah, Artemis just not having the damage yet to really shut anybody down and not being able to pick up those kills, but small mistakes here from Cerberus, just overstepping a bit. First Huba getting caught, then Pun trying to help, and then it's one by one Cerberus running in, and only the gold they really have on their members is saving them here. One thing I wanted to say is that funnily enough, it's actually completely fine that Artemis doesn't really have the kills, doesn't really have the gold, because this game isn't about the AD carries. It's mostly about the top laners. It's mostly about Emperor and Pun finding good ultimates. It's about the junglers finding good engages. And it's about the mid laners finding that follow-up, finding the CC. And then the AD carries will just follow up, right? They, at some point, both of them will have their items, and Artemis just finding the items in the long run now is completely fine. And we might, for the first time, either see him going BT now, or he is actually doing something smart and going for Infinity Edge.
Yeah, it's very unfortunate because we've got a Caulfield just kind of sitting in the inventory that's looming. That just it's taunting us with that very, very likely to be Navori quick blades. But if Infinity Edge gets dropped here, Artemis with an Infinity Edge in that last fight probably kills everybody, or comes very damn near close to killing every single member.
To be fair, he probably also kills everybody if he has
with
enough
Bloodthirster. Yeah, that's fair. Or any other.
I think any solid third item is gonna win them this team fight. There, it was a little damage that was missing, and on the other hand, Slater has his 3 items now as well. But I can't really see him auto taking. Honestly, I think he legit doesn't get to auto take in this game. And it has to be somebody on his team stepping up, finding a catch, maybe on Artemis. He doesn't have flash. He doesn't have cleanse. He's vulnerable right now. Maybe you kill the Artemis right here.
Equalizer dumps the wave, which is the full intention. They were trying to prevent the mid tower from going down, but that is an ultimate burnt. Rumble's ultimate is notoriously low cooldown around this dragon, so we might have it up before if they can stall just for a little bit of time. But they're going to turn. They have to fight for this. I don't like them giving away Infernal Dragons. I know it's a bit of gold back. I don't know, maybe you could chime in on this again. If they go without fighting, especially, I really, really don't like the call. Is they're going to try to cut off Cerberus for the rest of their base. That should be an escape angle, but now Cerberus potentially give up mid control, although the wave being gone does mean that it's not going to be that punishing here. There's no inhibitor kind of threat. So again, Infernal versus mid tower, tell me what your thoughts are, because I'm really, really not liking the trade for SBTCE.
I mean, they felt like they couldn't fight right now, which is true. I think they can't fight it, and they're not outscaling in traditional sense, I think, but they definitely can catch up in items, but it's going to take a lot of time, and I think it's time they don't have. So, yeah, I think fighting at this point could have been an angle, but they didn't have the vision, they didn't have the setup, so I understand why they're really scared to walk in, because it seems near impossible to walk into that enemy team comp, especially if you have no vision, and as that, at least you didn't lose the game.
Yeah, maybe a catch-22 where it's like, okay, we could either go in and, potentially give up the Infernal Dragon, maybe get a fight win, maybe it's more of a coin flip if you go in, as Yado actually just probably going to die. Yeah, he just gets absolutely eviscerated by DNK and Slater. As slowly, Slater has continued to collect gold in this game. Like you said, maybe the 1v5 angle. That's a lot of members of Cerberus who showed up to fight, as that's going to be an ultimate. That's a Featherstorm dropped in the way of a lot of members. DNK was able to get out as well, as Drakthar was able to pull an ultimate, but now the reinforced from DO1 is going to drop a ton of damage into the rest of the team. Can Slater step forward? Can Slater fight? DNK tries to punch forward, tries to get something. Paulette also readily available, but nobody else from the side of this team is able to get anything. I almost wanted Emperor to come TPing in and find a slicing maelstrom. I feel like that could have been a 1v5 angle for Emperor on the backline, as they are going to force Cerberus into a tough call. Pun is on the bottom side of the map. No TP to join this fight. Huber's low health. Only Drakthar can try to steal this at this point, as Artemis is also going to be relatively low. Paulette just has to be here. DO1's also going to be here to try to zone out members, make sure that nobody's going to show up at the right time. And SBTCE, get back on the Baron, please. Stop looking for the fight. Emperor's got it. Please, just kill the Baron and walk away. They're going to be able to do that, as the chickens find something back to. They finally get a fight. They finally get a Baron, and they're going to get a gold advantage back for themselves somehow.
The chickens get the huge purple chicken, take it down, and now have its buff, its powerful a buff for themselves. And it was a good fight, and it was kind of a follow-up to this Nash play, because they used to this Drake play, because they used that timer that Cerberus was grouped on the Drake to get into topside jungle, get the catch onto Yado, and snowball that into a fight, followed up by the Nash itself. So still, Slater in a great position, now has the BT as well, so a bit more sustain, a bit more survivability to his name. But we could really see in that top fight how hard it is for him to play. Pun's ultimate comes out, he has ulti, and then instant VQ ulti to follow him up and to make sure that he isn't able to do anything.
Yeah, it's slowly over the course of this game, itemization is getting better and better for SBTC Esports. It's 4 items on Slater, who, like you said, I don't think could auto. Wow, that was just off screen, and DL1 just gets wrecked by Cerberus, who again 5-stack into top side to try to make something happen. Equalizer's going to try to prevent Paulette from doing anything, as they're going to look for the members that don't have defensive tools. Usually it'd be Slater, you'd think, as Yado's going to take some auto-attacking damage. Featherpool's not going to get it. Galeforce is not going to find anything either, as that's going to be the ultimate burn from Slater, but he doesn't have the Featherpool anytime soon. DNK is going to come in with a Cyclone, ripping through the rest of this team, trying to find something, but he just doesn't have the damage to full top and carry. This Pun is not going to go down, and that's going to be that. Emperor can't join that fight. He TP'd in the last one as Cerberus. They find a full engagement in the top side of the map out of nowhere and get their gold back.
And Slater and Palette lose their mind, go in 2v5, try to fight it, and I don't understand why, because you're out. Just walk away. You might lose your DR1, but that's fine. I mean, he inted, let the inter die, and then I understand that they want to turn it because they see an angle where Rumble ultis out, but I think they didn't expect everybody to be there. I think they kind of didn't expect Artemis to follow up to be there as well, and then it was a 2v4, which honestly, without Rumble ulti, without Vi ulti, I think up, sounds more playable, I guess, and we'll have to see how DR1 died again. I mean, yeah. He got just jumped on by everybody.
He's just a criminal for autoing that ward. We can literally see the Braum on top of it. But this was the more confusing part, because if DNK gets here in time, it feels like the combination of the Cyclone with Slater's ultimate actually might have been enough. I love the attempt on Yato at least a little bit if they were going for the fight. But again, it's just out of the timer of... Again, watch the Cyclone. The Cyclone goes crazy here, actually does quite a bit. If you get a Featherstorm on top of it, they might actually just straight up win this 3v5. But it was just mistimed by a bit of time.
I also think that is a huge mistake from Slater, actually, because I think if he ults and then Gale Forces away, or I think he Gale Forced in and ulted then, right?
Yeah.
If he just Gale Forces away, buys time for DNK to play this. But because he Gale Forced in, he put himself in a really shit position. He, in the end, got just run down. And if he doesn't grieve for Yato, they might be actually able to play that fight.
And instead, again, it's SBTC, I think, just looking for any kind of straws that they can grasp. And in this particular case, weren't able to. Slater is able to start up the Dragon and get some damage down on a Drakthar as the Dragon's going to get pulled. Both teams here in the pit. Emperor finally arrived as well. Zenper has not been in like a single team fight for the last few minutes. Gets chunked by Yato. Is going to burn the Banshees. But now Emperor is going to have to be a lot more fearful about being able to go in onto the backline. Equalizer's great to split DO1 off from the rest of the team. Emperor's down to 25% health. Down to 20% health. Yato has just driven him completely out of the fight, and now Emperor, he's going to have to TP back in. See if he's going to be able to kind of be around. He
has a red blue buff.
He does. That's going to be Drakthar going in. Drakthar is going to be able to help find a kill. A lot of the damage is going to be able to do quite a bit. Pun is going to have to Zonius out of that, as Emperor's going to flash in with a Slicing Maelstrom. Going to find damage onto Hubert, but that's the only person that they get a bunch of damage into. And now SBTCE, can they actually step up? They are not going to be able to stop the Dragon, I don't think. And just like that, it is a 1-for-1, but 3 Dragons to Cerberus Infernal Drakes are not something you want to be giving up at this point.
Absolutely not. I think they are biting themselves right now. It looks so unplayable for them. Slater's just watching the game run away from him. He can't play the game. He legit cannot play it. And this time Rumble didn't even ult him, and he couldn't play. So it looks so unplayable. I'm not sure how do you get into this game. I think if Emperor was in a position to really carry, if he had gone ahead early, if Pun hadn't been this fed, I think there would have been a good shot for them to win the game through the AoE. But right now, Slater can't play, Emperor can't play, Pun is God, and the Vi and Arya are doing so much work as well.
It also feels like, again, when do you pull the trigger if you're SBTCE? You have abilities like Cyclone on DNK, you have Flash on DO1, you have Nautilus who can kind of go in, had Flash at the beginning of that fight, to set up Kennen ulting into the backline when he had a flank angle. Instead, they were just kind of bottlenecked at the front of Dragon, and Yato was able to chip out Emperor, so that Emperor had to TP back in a worse position than what he had. He had to run through the front just to find some kind of damage against this squad. Again, it's just SBTCE not able to make the decision necessary to kind of win out the fight. The goal doesn't look very different, but again, 3 Infernal Souls is way too much for Cerberus to have at this point in the game. SBTCE are never going to be able to respond to this damage.
They absolutely are not, and now we see that Cerberus is setting up around that Nash. They want to force SBTC to walk in and to be run over, because those small tight spaces are great for the Vi, for the Rumble, for the Braum. They really want to fight there. Why SBTC want open space, and now the engage comes in.
Equalizer to push out Slater, as that's going to be DO1 wrecked on the side of this fight. A couple ultimates down, though, might buy a bit of space. Slater can't step up to auto attack yet again. Looked like maybe there was an angle for Slater to be able to step up, but just not going to be the case. And Equalizer's almost back up. Like, come on. Like it's like half up, and he just used it in that fight. As they're going to look for a 4v5, they're going to have to stop the Baron, because I think that if you give up the Baron, you're just going to end up losing the soul point. As DNK is going to go in with the Cyclone on the front. Paulette is trying to make sure that Yado cannot show up. Emperor needs to find an angle for an ultimate, doesn't have anything. They're going to go on to Yado just as quick as possible. Can't even find the kill against the Ahri. As DNK on the other side trying to buy some kind of space for Emperor, who's going to jump in with the slicing Maelstrom. The Baron is stolen. A kill is taken. And out of nowhere, SBTC Esports is alive in this game. Pun's going to go down as a bunch of gold goes over to the side of SBTC Esports. Now Artemis is going to get autoed a bunch. Isn't quite going to go down. Slater's got Guardian Angel. He doesn't care. Yado got driven out of that fight. And somehow, SE lives to fight another day. Tim, how did they just dig themselves out of that hole?
I mean, it's all down to shit ulti usage. Drakta opened that fight with an ultimate on the Nautilus. Nautilus hooked out. That was probably the worst part, or the worst ultimate you could use. Yado used his ultimate to kill Dia 1. Again, not great ulti usage. Dia 1 is basically useless anyways. At the same time, Pun used his ultimate to zone out the Xayah, but didn't really get anything. So all of those impactful ultimates just not doing anything in that fight. That now, on the contrary, means that you can walk up, you can get in, and Emperor hit a perfect ultimate in the pit. Really, the only position where Cerberus can put themselves to really make it easy for Emperor to get in is in the pit. They put themselves there, and they got run down. And I mean, something we have to remember is that there was only 500 gold lead for Cerberus when the fight started. It's not like they have a massive gold lead. No. It's just that the gold difference is on the really important positions. But so far, Artemis is not really in the game. He has his 4 items now, but he doesn't really have any big impact in this game.
No, hasn't been able to kind of step up. Again, it's these kind of one-off ultimates being able to utilize from the side of Cerberus that have done quite a bit. Equalizer alongside Yada being able to people off with a full combo and the Everfrost and everything else. That's going to be a driven down top tower. The Equalizer's not even enough. Even the full charge Equalizer's not enough to kill off that one cannon minion. Soul is still here for Cerberus. To me, that's their saving grace. They got 5 more minutes outside of anything else that pops up, and that's assuming that they don't just get the Infernal Soul on this pass alone. SE has not done... They could shove up mid lane now. They've got 24 seconds. The next wave is going to hit. They should be able to shove that one up. Should be able to take space in the river to kind of be here on time. We'll see if they're able to find another T-fighter. Cerberus can kind of walk away. I think even if Cerberus ends up with 4 members, 3 members alive, if they have the Infernal Soul, they are perfectly fine and they are comfortable in this game. But it's going to be difficult now that SE's have this. Absolutely. Anything else? Okay.
They know he's there now.
Yes. Okay, Dragon's getting thrown down. Okay, Drakthar was, I think, trying to 50-50, and now Yado's just dead. Okay, that's Equalizer thrown. That's a big ultimate that's going to go down. DNK could just keep fighting against Pun, as that's going to slow him down. Cyclone's going to get him. 2 members are down. Like, Cerberus just tossed the game. Like, Drakthar wasn't able to get anything. He was trying to 50-50 to Dragon. Yado in a flank position, Pun in a position to put an Equalizer. Both of them get brought down. And now with Baron buff and with a 3rd Dragon, no chance for a soul, they might just push down the base.
It's a fight who can throw harder in this volleyball world championship here. Throwing the ball over net, and this game got thrown left, right, and center. Now the engage coming in from Palette.
Okay.
Onto Huba.
Yeah, a bit of damage. Now Drakthar goes ulting in on top of DNK, has to flash out immediately so as not to just get dumpstered. Artemis was still full health at the front end of this, and I think that's what they're a little bit terrified of as to whether or not the Zeri can actually full carry here. But that's not gonna deter them more than anything else. I mean, being up 6,000 gold, they got their first really significant gold lead of the game. They canceled out the Dragon advantage. Now the next one's gonna be soul point for whoever has control. And right now, that control is on SE's side.
Nothing makes sense anymore. I mean, it looked to be all Cerberus all day, but I mean, SBTC fighting back, finding angles, finding those small fights, and Cerberus just, guys, we just take 5 man, we put down Rumble ulti, we force Xayah ulti, then we press Drakthar ulti, and then we win the game. It is that simple.
And yet, it has not been done a single time for the last probably 15 minutes here for Cerberus. Again, they've got these big ticket ultimates, but it feels like they're just not able to clean up the way that they want to. And now Cerberus, if they land some of these ultimates, it's great, but it still feels like Artemis has to bail them out. You can see the gold advantage back and forth between the 2 teams has just risen immensely over the last couple of minutes here for the side of SEs. They've cleaned up fights, they've cleaned up objectives, they've kind of done everything that they needed to. Because now, Good equalizer, dumps the wave, everything else. That's a very dead Emperor, which means a lot of the team fight's going to be missing. Now on the backline is Slater going to be able to do a bunch of damage. Runen's going to be able to help put out damage. That's Drakthar going down. He's going to be able to stand forward and do a bunch of damage, as it does not matter if they lost. All the ultimates are just gone from the side of Cerberus. Now it's Slater versus Artemis, who's trying to carry harder right now. DNK gets a backline pot of play, and now hooked up is Palette. Oh my goodness, Slater set up for a massive quadra kill, and just like that, Cerberus Esports in the last 5 minutes have gone from losing this game, losing Infernal Soul, to just outright demolishing Cerberus in team fights, as they're going to drag out game number 3.
Pun never plays Rumble again. This guy